Hello, everyone. Welcome to Dangerous Ideas. I'm Lee Camp, one of the most censored comedians in America, slash journalist, whatever I am. I don't know. I don't know what I am, but I am bringing you a lot of the news stories that the mainstream media won't touch with a 10-foot pole, or I'll bring you the angle they won't touch with a 10-foot pole. Thanks for joining me. I got the story of two, that's right, two assassinations on this episode. We'll be discussing, of course, the Prigozhin assassination. Well, and maybe some of you believe it was not an assassination. Maybe it was an accidental super accident of a thing that accidentally burst into flames and fell to the ground accidentally. I'll be covering that one, but I'll also be covering another assassination that very few people are talking about later in the episode as well. And I want to be, I also will show you the results of a Twitter poll that I'm doing right now. You can vote in it at Lee Camp is my Twitter, as to who it was that assassinated Prigozhin. I will say this: I don't normally, when someone's been assassinated, I don't normally, do a poll on who do you think did it and that kind of stuff. It seems a little lighthearted. However, this guy's like a war criminal. I mean, and that's not the neoliberal, like every Russian is a war criminal, every American is a goody pants. No, they're all war criminals. This is a battle. A lot of it is battle between oligarchs, between war criminals. This guy was a billionaire, head of a mercenary soldier squad. Happened to be Russian, but if it were an oligarch, head of a billionaire, head of a mercenary squad of any government or any country, I would. That's why I'm okay with making some jokes, with having a poll on who do you think did it, because this is not like the next assassination I'm going to talk about of a journalist, where I would not do a poll on, it's funny, who do you think did it? Now, if some of you think I'm being, it's a bit too dark humor for you, then I'm sorry. That's it's just the world we live in. But I'm going to give you, here's the thing. I'm going to give you, coming up, 3, I guess 4, maybe, possible causes to the, and culprits of the Prigozhin assassination. And I'll give you the reasons that each one could be true. So I'll be going through that. This is not to say I know who did it. Of course, I don't. I'd say very few people in this world right now do. So if someone tells you they're certain they know who did it, then a bit iffy there. But yeah, I'll be doing all that. And of course, other stories as well. I've got some great video of yet another beautiful interruption of officials and the elite, and watching the elite freak out with their little cocktails in their hands. They're so angry as they're holding their cocktails. It's the best. It's the best. So I got that video coming up as well. But okay, so let's begin with, this is just standard mainstream media. This is PBS. The Wagner. I've heard it pronounced both ways. I don't know what you guys prefer, Wagner or Wagner, but I guess I more often hear Wagner. But the Wagner leader Yevgeny Prigozhin was aboard the plane that crashed. Russian agency is confirming. There's video of in the far distance of the plane going down, already on fire. So this is clearly not, this is something shot or exploded in flight. And, they don't really have much information in these mainstream media sources, although if they're going to give a theory, it's just that Putin did it. Now, it is quite possible that Putin did this, and I'll go over some of the reasons here in a moment. This is from CNN, again, standard mainstream media. Okay, now, a lot of this you guys, many of you may know, some of you may not, but Prigozhin, leader of the Wagner mercenary group that was very powerful in the battle in Ukraine, the proxy war in Ukraine, and obviously for the Russians. However, Prigozhin himself was not a military man. He was a billionaire oligarch who basically knew how to pay people to be troops, soldiers. Many of them were prisoners that were released, and they have done a lot of the fighting. And some of them very much respected him. Some of them did not. Prigozhin had many different businesses making his billions of dollars. But he was one of the kind of LinkedIn oligarchs of the Russian society. Much like the United States, Russia has oligarchs, Russia has corruption, the United States has those things as well. Even though if you look up oligarch in the dictionary, at least some of the bigger dictionaries, they act like the word oligarch is specifically Russian. Fucking no, it's not. The United States is an oligarchy. We are ruled by an elite business class. That aside, Prigozhin then led a attempted coup in Russia against Putin, and it did not go well. He did not have I think he thought, it seems likely, he thought that not only was Russian society going to join him, but many of the troops and many of the Wagner troops and many of the Wagner troops did not join him. And many of the ones that joined him apparently thought they were doing something else, like were kind of tricked to some degree. And when they found out the truth that they were involved in a full-scale coup, they abandoned the cause there. So it did not go as planned. All of these reasons, and then ultimately it's stopped by a deal between Putin and Prigozhin that's mediated by the president of Belarus, a Russian ally. So, which said that that Prigozhin and the others who were doing it would get immunity if they stopped. Now, many people in the know, far more knowledgeable about Russian society and everything, far more in the know than I am, said this does not end here. There's no way that Putin allows a full-on mutiny of his military and just gives the guy immunity. There's also a famous clip of Putin saying, if there's one thing that's unforgivable, it's disloyalty or being a traitor. So many said this doesn't end here. There's no way this ends well for Prigozhin. So fast forward to yesterday, this plane he's on drops out of the sky on fire, and he is dead. Now, all of that sounds a lot like, okay, well, this is Putin who did this, right? He's got all the motivation. It would just make a lot of sense for him to get this guy out of the way. And it, even though Putin would not admit it, it sends a message to anyone who's thinking of creating another coup, another mutiny, thinking of standing up to Putin in any way. It creates a clear message. So all of those reasons are plenty of reasons for Putin to have done this. But what the mainstream media, and they'll probably give you a lot of that, what the mainstream media won't give you, or our government won't give you, is the reasons that this could have been U.S. involved. And again, I don't know the answer, but the reason this could have been U.S. involved is because Scott Ritter, most of you know him, former weapons inspector, former Marine, but he very much has been very active in I'm using the word very as much as I very much can, been very active in speaking the truth about this proxy war and telling the truth on the ground that Ukraine is getting largely destroyed and it's really just a war of attrition. Russia knows they're going to win it. The question is whether the U.S. will accidentally push us all into nuclear war before it ends, really. And how many Ukrainians will die in the process, not of nuclear war, but die in the process of this war rather than just ending it. But anyway, so Scott Ritter, very informed on all this stuff, military man. He has said, I heard an extensive interview with him where he talked a lot about Prigozhin, and he said that it's quite possible, or maybe some people actually know, that the U.S. or some connection to the U.S. will often, when we want to filter things so that it doesn't look like it's us doing it, sometimes we'll feed information to British intelligence and they can feed it to their guy. I got a guy, Carl, he's on the front lines. And then eventually it gets far enough away from the U.S. that we can go, we had no idea of the coup against Putin. So Scott Ritter was saying that there's a lot of feeling among certain people that Prigozhin may have had information from the U.S., and he's also giving information to the U.S. So the U.S. would be telling him that, we've done internal polling, but not polls, but, in intelligence, and found that many would turn with you, your coup would be successful. Maybe they offered to have backing once it started or whatever. There's many ways you could talk someone into believing that they got a better chance at a coup than they think. So that's one thing that could connect it to the United States. But another one that Scott Ritter was theorizing is Prigozhin was very worried about his money. This is a billionaire. If billionaires care about one thing, it's their fucking money. And things were changing for the Wagner mercenary group. The deals that were the contracts that they had, he was getting paid a lot to lead the mercenary group, and that was ending. His contract was ending. And so there's a lot of theorizing about his money getting taken away and what he was going to do to keep, making hundreds of millions of dollars, etc. And so there's also a theory that, he was worried about his money, and so he had been offered a lot of money to help create a coup against Russia. So that's another theory. Anyway, those are some reasons that this could connect back to the United States. If any of those were true, then you've got a powerful or formerly powerful oligarch who definitely has the world's ear. Like, if he spoke out, people would hear it. And if he did have any connections to the U.S., then that would be something they would not want getting out. Now, to me, that's a lot of ifs. There's a lot of ifs there. Seems like a bit of a stretch, but certainly not impossible. That he was looking for a way out. He was looking, if you're going to create a coup against Putin, who are you going to look to that's going to back you, give you intelligence, tell you the best way to achieve such a coup? Well, you'd probably look to Britain and the U.S. would be some of the key people. They got the most intelligence. They got the most weapons. They got the most money. So when he's planning on doing this, when he's thinking about a coup, maybe he turns to them. Anyway, so those are some reasons that the U.S. could have been involved in this fiery plane crashing to the ground. The third one is Ukraine government. Obviously, that is still kind of connecting it to the United States, because if Ukraine did this, then it would be probably with U.S. intelligence and definitely with U.S. weaponry that we've been sending over there. So even if it is the Ukraine government and not the United States, it's kind of like our butt buddies. But yes, it could have been the Ukrainians but to have the skill, the specialty to know which plane this guy's on. And I know some of you were like, wait, he did a coup. He attempted a coup against Putin. Why would the Ukrainians not love this guy? Well, because he had also spent months and months going to war with them, killing many of them in terms of the Wagner group, what they were involved in. I mean, they fucking hate these people. So just because he committed a failed coup against Putin does not make them instantly love him and instantly go, oh, he's our guy now. They could very well have still hated him. But it does seem a little less likely that they would go to the trouble to take out his plane when he had attempted a coup against Putin, who is their main enemy. And then I guess the fourth choice could be this was an accident, but does anyone believe this was an accident? Like, is there anyone really that thinks that Just the plane got very fiery. It was, you know what it is? You know how you can control your temperature on one of the on the planes where you turn that little knob and lets a little cold air out. Well, everybody had their knobs closed because it was a little cold in there, and that that actually heated up the plane so quick that the whole thing burst into flames. Because if you turn that thing and you close off the air ducts, it gets very hot very quick, and so total accident, total mistake. But okay, so those are the 4 theories, and I will now, and like 2 of those, which are certainly likely not given to you by your mainstream media. They act like those possibilities don't even exist. So here is the vote that I just put up. This is not completed. This is a continuing poll on Twitter or X, whatever the fucking stupid. Here's the thing. I have a thing about any corporate. Yes, it's dumb that Elon Musk said my toy now, and then he just changes everything. Whatever. I don't give a shit about that asshole. But I just hate when corporations change, and they're like, whenever they're like, it's called FedEx Field now. It's called creditscore.com Diamond Field. Fuck you. And then whenever they do that, whenever you're like, no, that's my favorite football stadium, and now it's FedEx. Whenever they do that, I always think like, no one's going to call it FedEx. And then instantly all these media organizations, because obviously they are bought by the same advertisers, same corporate America, they all switch. They're immediately going to creditscore.com Field. And what kind of, are you human? Are you a robot? Name change thing happened. So I just always hated that. Now this is a little different. You know, he changed it to X because he's fucking weird. By the way, sorry to go off on 2 tangents before I bring you the results of this poll, but second tangent. Did you know that Elon Musk was booted out in like a hostile firing, a hostile takeover, or whatever it's called, of PayPal? He was the CEO of PayPal, right? Him and Peter Thiel. But Elon Musk was the CEO back in early 2000s. Maybe it was even 2000, 2001. And he kept wanting to change the name of PayPal to X. And they all thought he was insane. And they even paid for big, testing to find out what people thought of the name X. And they found out everyone thought it was porn. And so part of the reason, it wasn't the only reason, part of the reason they booted him in the middle of the night, like he didn't know what was happening, booted him out of PayPal, was because he kept saying, we need to change it to X, change it to X. And so here he is trying to get his vengeance. Like, well, now I own thing I call X. What kind of weird fucking fever dream did he have where he was like, X will be the name of my greatest creation? Anyway, here's the poll on X, which you can still vote on. It's going for another day, but I didn't put it up that long ago. But who did it? So far, we have 440 votes. And wow, I'm impressed. Putin and U.S. government are actually running neck and neck. 43.6% say Putin, 43.2% say U.S. government, and Ukraine is down below at 13%. Of course, if you assume that Ukraine is basically working as a tentacle of the U.S. government, and you add those two together, then you have 56%, which would be way ahead of those voting for Putin. And by the way, Twitter's X's poll seems to be fucked up because they're putting the check as if next to U.S. government as if it's winning, when in fact it's losing by 0.4%. But what a surprise that X is a bit glitchy. It's so shocking. Anyway, go over there if you want to vote. At Lee Camp is my Twitter name. Also at the top of at Lee Camp, you can grab tickets to the upcoming live comedy show, my first live comedy show in 5 years, my first full new live comedy hour in 5 goddamn years. And anyone can watch it anywhere in the world. It'll be via Zoom, and you can grab your $5 tickets at go to Twitter. It's the top of my Twitter feed, and the new special is called Not Enough Friends to Bury a Body. But okay, let's move on to an update on BRICS, and then a little later, I'm going to bring you the second assassination of our assassination hour, which going into this, I did not intend for this to be the assassination hour, but it just kind of happened that way. So this is a major. Actually, that's something about the Prigozhin assassination that I forgot to add in here. People are also giving reasons that this wasn't Putin, and two of the ones I've heard are the fact that Putin had access to him for whatever, a month now, how long's it been, and could have killed him, could have had him killed at any time. Why wait until now? I don't think that argument really holds up because, you might wait till now so it looks like it's not you doing it. You might wait till now because that's the first time he's been on a plane that you had an easy way to, quick and easy way to shoot down. Who knows what the reason is? But I think the argument is not that great. The other, though, which to me seems like a little bit of a better argument, if you want to try and say Putin didn't do this, is that the BRICS meeting, the major BRICS summit just happened. And this really distracts from the BRICS summit, which, of course, Russia supports BRICS heavily. And that would be a big reason to not take all of the successful news of a BRICS summit and replace it with Putin kills enemy. So that argument is a little bit better as they go. But anyway, so this is the update of the major BRICS summit, and I also will show some of the propaganda that the New York Times is using against this news story. So this is the New York Times article. BRICS group announces new members, expanding its reach. And even in the title, they're trying to make it sound a little sinister. Like they love, whenever they're talking about China or Russia or BRICS, it's always about reach and tentacles and grip. And the last one I brought you about China, anti-China propaganda, it was a global web. So everything about Russia and China is always reachy and touchy and grabby and spidery. That's all. Every New York Times article it's a web and fingers on you, got you, to creep out every liberal American who's like, oh, they're reaching. Now, what we need right now in America is a reach around. That's what we need. Fucking chill us out a little bit. But so here are the BRICS. New BRICS members were added, and the U.S. is not liking this one. This one stings a bunch. So, and by the way, I said I was going to call this the multipolar world update because I can't seem to be doing these more often. So this is the multipolar world update. We are no longer we are splitting away from just U.S. hegemony into a multipolar world. But here are the member states, the countries that have just been added to BRICS officially. Now, 41 countries have requested to be added. And most of the United States fucking hates BRICS. BRICS is the largest threat to U.S. hegemony. It obviously involves China and Russia. So if you say China is the biggest threat, well, BRICS is a entity that encompasses China, that China's involved in. But the latest added members, so BRICS stands for Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. So those are already members. And here are the new ones added. Argentina, Egypt, U.S. ally there, Ethiopia, Iran, which that one stings as well, even though it's not an ally, but it's one of our biggest enemies. UAE and Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia stings like a bitch, all right? Because not only is Saudi Arabia supposedly an ally, not only is there a special security agreement between the U.S. and Saudi Arabia, not only are there other ways that we work with Saudi Arabia, not only have we helped them so much with their genocide in Yemen, and this is how they repay us. We have done so much work to help their genocide. Why would they do this when we have genocided for them We have served up piping hot glasses of genocider for years now. Years we've been helping them with that genocide. And this is the response from Saudi Arabia. God damn it. You think you have a friend. You think you have a buddy. It's something you've been through thick and thin with. You've let them chop up and barbecue some of your journalists. And this is how they repay you. It's really not cool. Really not cool, Saudi Arabia. But, of course, something this article will not mention. I mean, it doesn't mention any of that either, but sorry, I got something in my throat. So this article will not mention, and you will not be surprised that they don't mention it, even though it's one of the biggest factors here, is Saudi Arabia is the crux, the keystone, the main country that allows our petrodollar system to continue to be to remain a near economic hegemonic power in this world. And that agreement that Saudi Arabia will sell their oil in US dollars is what really makes the US dollar the reserve currency of the world. And so to see Saudi Arabia join BRICS, the competing economic system that hasn't yet introduced their own currency, so they haven't yet been able to fully displace the US dollar, but they're doing it slowly. And the fact that they joined BRICS is a fucking stinger right there. So, but let me, well, I'll give you the way the New York Times part of their propaganda. They talk about BRICS and they say it was at a crossroads in this summit. Should it follow the path of more moderate members like India and try to work within the Western-dominated global system? Yeah, see, I love how if you agree and work with the U.S. empire, which does an amazing amount of murder and killing and destruction around this world, literally sending humanity off a fucking cliff with the climate crisis, because we and the rich specifically in our country are some of the largest perpetrators of the climate crisis. But even outside of that, you know, we've killed 6 million. That's the cost of war study from Brown University. 6 million people dead from the global war on terror, just the global war on terror. That doesn't include everything else we've been involved in. And the idea that that's moderate, Murdering 6 million people in 20 years is moderate. I see. But that's what the New York Times will tell you. That's the moderate view. So the New York Times asks, should BRICS follow the path of moderate India and work within the Western-dominated global system, or should it tack towards China by adding, which is not moderate, right? The country that has had 0 wars in the past 20 years, the country that has 1 military base outside of China, while the U.S. has 800 outside the United States. That country is the non-moderate country. That's the evil, sinister, dastardly country. The U.S. that kills millions around the world, we're the moderates, okay? The New York Times wants you to know that. On Thursday, the bloc, and they use the term bloc whenever they refer to like non-Western groups. They never called NATO a bloc, right? Or rarely, because bloc sounds scary. It's a term that's used for mainly Soviet stuff, and Russians and China, they're blocs, Soviet bloc. Whereas the US and NATO, we're partnerships. We're buddies, handholders. The bloc revealed its decision, adding 6 new countries, including the staunchly anti-Western Iran, in an apparent victory for Beijing. Oh, I didn't even count that in my tab. So I was getting ready to tell you about just how you can tell how propagandized the New York Times. And by the way, the New York Times is just an example of this is all our mainstream media, but how propagandizing the New York Times is. Here's a little search for your information. So I put in not China because it could also be the word Chinese. So I just put in CHIN in the search for the article. There are 26 mentions of China or Chinese in this article about BRICS. Now, how many mentions of the word dollar, which is kind of the main reason for BRICS is a competition to the dollar, competition to dollar hegemony, competition to economic hegemony. How many mentions of the dollar? 1. 26 of China or Chinese, 1 mention of dollar. How many mentions of International Monetary Fund? 1. How many mentions? Oh, sorry, 2. How many mentions of World Bank? 1. How many mentions of petrodollar? 0. So you have 26 mentions of China or Chinese in this article. And I forgot to say that sometimes they call China Beijing, basically. So there's 2 mentions of Beijing. So that's 28. 28 mentions of China, Chinese, or Beijing, and 1 mention of the US dollar. 0 mentions of the petrodollar. That's how this propaganda works. Even if they don't necessarily have, sentences saying, oh, China's evil, US is great. They make you think that BRICS is all about China. That's all that matters. And China's all about getting us. And US dollar is like a side note, I would love to know the number of times the New York Times has mentioned the word petrodollar. I think they can't say it. I think they're like legally not allowed to, or they're allergic to it. Because I think it's much like Wikipedia. If you look on at least English language Wikipedia, there is no article for petrodollar. There's an article for something called petrodollar recycling, which is part of the petrodollar system, but there is no article just for the term petrodollar, which has got to be one of the biggest things in the world that has no English language Wikipedia article about it. Anyway, that's the multipolar world update. Right there. Okay, I am now going to bring you the second assassination story update on this that, of course, gets little to no mainstream media coverage at all. And if not complete U.S. involvement, it at least is connected to U.S. actions. And that story and several others will continue to live stream at rumble.com/Lee Camp. So join me over there and we will keep this thing going. I'll put the link in the chat here so you can just click on that. And when you get over there, please make sure you click the follow button and the bell icon so you can follow me over there. But okay, the rest of this hour, we're heading over there. And let me just update these things. Thank you so much, by the way, everyone, for joining me. And while I click these things, you should also check out Eleanor Goldfield's new documentary on saving the trees and deforestation and the impact of it, etc. And that is at tothetreesfilm.com. That's T-O, obviously, tothetreesfilm.com.